It's time for the drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Wednesday edition of the Drive with Q coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game studios, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Mi hermano, Angel Martinez, behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. 2 hours to play with. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. As always, do not forget the 727-858. 6650 brings something to the table. Lots to dive into on this 22nd of January already. 2025 as we try to get over the hump. We've got the AFC, the NFC championship games among us. Championship Sunday, an exciting time in the NFL. We will definitely get into the games. We got some late breaking news, if you will, to kind of kick things off, if you will, on this Wednesday. We'll talk NBA, 5 o'clock hour. I got to get into this conversation too with our guy, Reese Wood, who does a great job with his foundation, hoops aficionado down there in Miami. Get his take on Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. Also, another horrible loss by the Philadelphia 76ers. LeBron with some BS pat statting, and we will dive into that as well. But the two big stories that have come down in the NFL today, the first, which we pretty much mentioned, I would say a week or so ago, with the Jets courting Aaron Glenn. If you call on the drive, I basically came out and it was almost, I back any type of play the Jets were going to have when it came to Aaron Glenn. And I recall, I believe I said it to Lloyd Vance, that once they interview him, do not allow him to leave the building. And the Jets pretty much, it is a done deal. They always have to go through the X's and O's and the details and whatnot, but they have named Aaron Glenn their new head coach. And this is multiple sources. They're hiring Glenn, obviously, Lions, former defensive coordinator. Listen, I think it's a good move. I think it's a coming, home, a full circle type of move, because he was a first round pick with the Jets in 1994. I think, he's going to come in and lead. And I know people have these certain preconceived notions when it comes to a former player coming back to a team that drafted him or a first-time head coach. We'll kind of run through that. I think it might not be the sexy hire, right? And I understand Robert Saleh, defensive guy, 49ers, rah, rah, rah. You're kicking the tires with Glenn and doing the same thing. We'll talk little pros and cons with that. And then about 15 minutes ago, the news came down for our faithful Florida listening audience. And if you are a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, I mean, how about this? The Jags decide to fire GM Trent Baalke. I feel as though Lloyd Vance and myself literally just talked about this, where you had the interview, or I should say the Zoom call, that where Shad Khan, the owner of Jacksonville, basically, he came out and said, look, I'll take into consideration any type of head coach if they give me solid input. And the question was asked, to paraphrase the type of input, if it's something where they suggested moving on from the GM. And he basically said, yeah, basically telling Trent Baalke right there, you're on notice. You're on notice. And I think it's long overdue. You're talking 4 seasons. And I'm wondering, too, if there's this element that Baalke was, I would say, self-sabotaging not only himself, but the franchise. Because if you really want to break it down, listen, his draft, and I'll get into it, nobody wants this job. And think of the head coaches that he's kind of ran through, right? The Urban Meyer fiasco, Doug Peterson, firing Caldwell. It was just an absolute mess. So if you're a Jags fan, who wants this job? Who wants the GM? Who wants to be the head coach? Or maybe you just didn't entrust Trent Baalke to bring in the right candidates. You didn't entrust the GM to hire the right guy. And I love, again, when everyone gets fired, you're always talking about, you're waxing poetic about the former employee. If that's the case, why'd you get rid of him? I think you knew once Khan fired Doug Peterson, and he again went during that interview, it was January 6th, it was 2+ weeks ago, in a news conference, I should say, pardon me, that there was going to be a complete organizational overhaul, right? He said that afternoon in a new conference that a complete organizational overhaul would be, quote, suicide. He also said that if any coaching candidate expressed reservations about the organizational structure, i.e., working with Trent Baalke, he would be willing to address the topic. That said right there that Baalke was on borrowed time. They lost out on who? They lost out on Ben Johnson because that was one of their top candidates. So he takes the Bears job. Forget about Aaron Glenn. He's taking the Jets job. So again, Mike Grable, we knew he's going to take the New England job. Baalke was with the Jags in 2020, director of player personnel. And again, go back. Khan fires Caldwell that November. So he starts his tenure off, and if you want to call it, a good draft, even though it's yet to be seen because of the injuries and inconsistent play, Trevor Lawrence, which basically bridged Urban Meyer, who had 12, 13 games as head coach. And remember, too, they dealt with some injuries, ETN, everything. Everyone's saying if you're going to get Trevor Lawrence, you might as well fix the offensive line. They never addressed it. So let's pry Doug Peterson away. Doug Peterson gets pushed out of Philly. We're going to pry him away because there was some buzz that Doug was looking at some other potential head coaching gigs or going back to being, on a coaching staff, coordinator or whatnot. But you also have to remember he chose defensive end Trayvon Walker over Hutchinson. That obviously looks like an all-pro, right? He gives Campbell a new contract. He gives Trevor Lawrence a new contract. He signs the defensive end, Allen, and it has not panned out. It hasn't panned out. 9 of his 38 draft picks from 2021 to 2024 have become full-time starters. That's not good. That's really bad. And like I said, you're drafting Walker first overall instead of Hutchinson, and everyone believed that Hutchinson would have been a cornerstone on a defensive unit. It's never good luck. And if you're unwilling to be open, if you're unwilling to criticism, if you're unwilling to bring in the candidate or the right head coach to make your job easier because of it's an ego, then you are sabotaging the franchise. And I think right now this is not a destination. We mentioned it yesterday. A couple of you guys were commenting in. What would be the best landing spot for X, Y, and Z? Would it be Jacksonville? Would it be Vegas? Would it be New York? We kind of ran through the gamut. And I don't know at this point who the hell wants to take this job. We know there are 32 of them, but who the hell wants to take this job right now? I mean, look, you don't think the Jets were a tough sell because of Woody Johnson? Aaron Glenn, it's an easy sell. You got drafted by the team. You played for the Jets. You played at a high level. You had some success. You had some lean years. You know how to handle the market. You know how to handle the media. You're coming home. Here we go. For Jacksonville, you have an owner that is just very sporadic. Maybe too honest. And the fact that he's sitting there on a conference call, press conference, if you will, that, if I bring in a guy and he really has reservations because of the GM, I'll listen to it. I mean, whoa. That's a dead man walking right there. That is a dead man walking right there. Now, what's interesting is Robert Saleh has a meeting scheduled with Jacksonville per multiple reports Friday. So right now, again, he's the favorite to land this job. Liam Cohen just pulled out. He just pulled out. So that tells you another potential candidate that wants nothing to do with Jacksonville. I mean, it's a poorly run franchise. It really is. I mean, you look at their draft picks, you look at what he's done over the last several years. Okay, Brian Thomas, wide receiver, looks to be like a stud, but you had a defensive tackle. Smith, quiet rookie year. The kid Jones, the DB, I think he played what? He had, I'd have to pull up his stats. You look at 2023, Harrison, Strange. Okay, he gave you a little bit. Bigsby, Miller. I can keep going. Walker, Lloyd, and then you go back to Trevor Lawrence and ETN. And right now, that 1-2 punch. You think you have something when you draft a young defensive end, you want to see production, do you not? But this kid hasn't given him anything. He just really hasn't. He had 3 sacks, 10 sacks, and then he kind of faded this year. 10 sacks, I think the verdict's still out. But point being is, do you want the job? Do you want to deal with an owner? Think of the track record of this GM. ETN, Campbell, Lloyd, Walker, Harrison, Brian Thomas. Those are 9 of 38. So all you can do is if you're going to take this job as a GM, you can just go up because this is pretty bad. But the owner has a little bit of Woody Johnson on, right? The patience. It wears thin. And I just don't know if I would want to take this job. And I'm not sitting here telling you that the AFC South is a friggin' juggernaut. It's not. The Texans are a good team. Indianapolis, we don't know if they're sold on Richardson. Tennessee has a boatload of problems. And then you got Jacksonville. So if you keep the quarterback upright, if you bring in the right coach with the right system, you add a couple pieces, can they be a team that's going to win 6 or 7 games? And you give it time. You have to be patient. If you believe Trevor Lawrence, that's another thing. You're bringing in, it's January. It's January. And you just fired the GM. And you're trying to find a head coach. So all of a sudden, if Robert Saleh decides, I'm not interested, you already missed out on certain candidates. Now you're losing options. And that's a horrible place to be. That's a horrible place to be. You have to trust. And if you don't trust that the owner's going to make the right call and bring in the right GM, then what the hell do I want to coach for? There's got to be some type of synergy. There has to be some type of synergy here. I mean, Jacksonville right now, you're looking at the Jags. That's a laughable franchise. That's a joke of a franchise. And remember, too, we were talking about their cap issue a year or two ago? And the cap hit? I mean, what the hell are you going to do? Is Trevor Lawrence a franchise quarterback? They had, last July, $28.5 million in salary cap, which was 7th most in the NFL, right? So how are you going to spend it? How are you going to use it? What are you going to do to make it better? And you invested $123 million in contracts for a defensive tackle in Armstead, for the wide receiver Davis, for a center, for a cornerback, for a defensive back. They also extended a bunch of players, i.e. Trevor Lawrence, and the outside linebacker, Josh Allen, with 2 of the largest deals in franchise history. And if you had financial stability and you can maneuver, you got to stick with it. And you have to make the right moves. You have to. And now Jacksonville has the number 5 pick in the draft. You better bring in a GM who can hire a friggin' head coach ASAP. ASAP. And there's a report that the Titans are open to trading back from number 1. But if you have a miss here with a GM who then has a miss with a head coach, you're done. I don't care who the quarterback is. You're done. You're going to be in purgatory, NFL purgatory. You're going to be that 4 or 5 win team that you used to be years ago. You're going to be like what the Giants are right now. And if Trent Baalke, was hardballing these guys and basically being a prick, and I'm not saying he is, But again, it's if he's being a prick, or if he's being difficult to work with in the regard of, hey man, I don't like this guy. I wouldn't hire this guy, because he knew. It's almost as though you're at a job and you have an opportunity that you can get along with your manager, and you don't feel like getting along with the manager, and you're written up, insubordination, suspended, dock and pay, because you're just a troublemaker. You're a friggin' instigator. And we know a lot of those people. You're an instigator. You're just stirring the pot. That's what you're doing at your job. Well, eventually, I'm going to keep just checkmarking and checkmarking and checkmarking. And ultimately, you're going to wind up hanging yourself. You're going to wind up screwing yourself. And I think that's what Baalke was doing. And if Baalke was sitting there sabotaging the franchise, and when I say sabotaging the franchise, we're basically talking about, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. It's not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea. I don't want to bring him in. Not open to changing, then that is a problem. So we got a lot of NFL on the table, 727-858-6650. The Jets hiring Aaron Glenn. I know Jet fans, I'm seeing it right now. You guys are connecting with me on Facebook and, of course, on X. I'll get to your comments. We'll pull up the comments after the break as well. I know Jet fans probably look at this move and they don't believe it's a sexy move. They don't believe it's an appealing move. They can be maybe just indifferent. Okay. I think Woody Johnson has to have patience. I know there was a report that if Aaron Glenn takes the job, he would love for Aaron Rodgers to come back. I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. The Jets will need a new quarterback in 2025. You bring in a defensive guy. You tried to do it with Robert Saleh. It did not pan out the way a lot of people thought. You can have press conferences where you're sitting there and you're screaming, run through the wall, run through the wall. All the theatrics. But when push comes to shove, if you're not a leader of men, if you're not keeping guys in check, if you're not making the right personnel decisions, building the roster, building the coaching staff, you're going to flounder and you're not going to last. And that's what's happening right now with some of these teams. So you got Championship Sunday. You got the news out of Jacksonville. Jets hire Glenn. We'll get in some hoop talk at 5 o'clock. Got to catch up with my guy, Reese Wood, Philly guy, doing some good work in Miami and hoops. Get his thoughts on what's going on with Butler. Also, I don't know if you guys saw this, LeBron James last night. We'll get into that. Let me just chuck it off the backboard. Let me collect that BS rebound for a triple-double, right? Because I'm all about padding the stats. We will dip into a little MLB. Steve Gardner, if not this week, next week, Hall of Fame, the voting, the process, the Hall of Fame, it was announced. I want to dive into that with Steve. He has a vote when it comes to Cooperstown, who gets in, who doesn't, but we always want to hear from you guys. 727-858-6650. Quickie timeout. We'll just jump start on the other side. 20 past 4 o'clock hour. Got to remind everyone we are powered by our good friends over at Zen Auto Concepts. Stuart, Florida, #1 detailing shop in all of Florida. And because the weather has just been absolutely horrible up along the East Coast. Florida, we saw a little sprinkle, a little spritzer of snow in Florida, right? Carolina, little spritzer, a little sprinkle of snow. So it's cold. So you know what you have to do? You have to warm yourself up with a little cafe. Not cafe con leche, but a little fresh roasted coffee, where we always freshen you up. We top you off a little bit. Don't forget the promo code BYP20, 20% for your first purchase. Save. Check out the show link notes. Fresh roasted coffee, the coffee choice of the Drive with Q. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll hook up your comments, your texts, your tweets. We'll see what you guys have to say as well. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's time for the
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
All right, 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved on a Wednesday. We will get into your comments as well. See what you guys have to say. A lot of NFL today. Jets hiring Aaron Glenn. Jacksonville getting rid of Trent Baalke. Championship Sunday. The madman chimes in. Better be a good show. Where's Angel? Angel, you just saw him. He's behind the glass. There's a lot of people you can trust. This is a safe zone from 4 to 6. It's a safe zone from 4 to 6. You know it, and I know it. Trevor, chiming in, little baseball take, which I'm always a fan of, by the way. Can the media shame the Hall of Fame voter who didn't make Ichiro unanimous Hall of Fame? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's ridiculous. Unbelievable. It's absolutely ridiculous that they do that. I'm not a fan. We'll get into that with Steve Gardner. Franchise still sucks. Don't see a path to glory in this decade. Probably talking about Jacksonville, which, I agree 100%. It's not a good franchise, right? It's not a good franchise. 727-858-6650. What do we got here? Now we're talking about the pecking order of comments. I'm still not sure how the pecking order goes. I think the YouTube takes are the best. See how Q goes to Facebook and X first for the comments. Thin ice, I tell you. Thin ice. Nah, not at all. Come on. We love you guys when you chime in. Yeah, the baseball voting process when it comes to the Hall of Fame, it's a good point, Trevor. I mean, same thing. Like, how can you not sit there and make a guy like, Derek Jeter unanimous, right? I mean, the Ichiro thing, there's just always a goofball in the bunch. There really is. Now, I also think, I mean, listen, we CC Sabathia, Billy Wagner, I mean, you can't question it now because they're in, right? But yeah, I mean, if you didn't vote for Ichiro Suzuki in the Baseball Hall of Fame, then you should not have a vote. Seriously. I mean, I think it's ridiculous and it's almost dangerous and it's not fair. Like if you can't recognize shoo-in Hall of Famer, you don't deserve the right or have earned the right to have a vote. You don't. CC was a workhorse on the mound. And Billy Wagner, I'd have to really look at Billy Wagner's numbers, but hey, listen, congratulations to the 3. And that's what you got. You got 2005, 2025, you got 3. You got Ichiro, you got CC, and you got Billy Wagner. And they will join Dave Parker, who I said for years should have been in, and the late, great Dick Allen, who is very deserving. But yeah, we'll talk a little more baseball tomorrow and next week with Steve Gardner. But I agree with you. If you have if you cannot clearly define it, and you know for a fact, right? I mean, it's just, I personally, I look at it from this standpoint, how do you not put a guy like Ichiro in, right? How do you not put a guy like CC Sabathia in? I mean, it's unbelievable. You have to, right? Dare I say we need Angel to give the show a little pick me up. Hey, listen, Angel is behind the scenes, behind the glass, doing what he has to do. And we always appreciate that. Can you imagine if Q had a vote on Baseball Hall of Fame? It would be a disgrace. That's not true. That's not true at all. Come on. That's not true. Kevin C chimes in. Q, I'm a little indifferent. I don't know why. I don't know. Jerry's comment keeps flashing up, so we'll have to maybe fix that. But what I was going to say is Kevin C chimes in. Q, I'm a little indifferent on the Aaron Glenn hire. I know he's the defensive guy. I know he's coming back to New York, but I think you mentioned it on your show several times. Just because you were a great player doesn't necessarily mean you come back and be a star head coach. Now, he doesn't have very big shoes to fill. But with that being said, do you think this is more of a safe hire, or does Woody Johnson have to eventually think outside the box down the road? And is he going to have patience? That is a lot, and I appreciate that. I can't answer that. I think if you are Woody Johnson, you have to have patience. You have to. It's very hard. I think what's going on in Washington is different because you have Jaden Daniels and you also have Quinn, who's been around the block. He's had success as a head coach, took Atlanta to a Super Bowl, right? And boom. Then you turn around and we saw what he was able to do defensively with the Dallas Cowboys, and now he's with Washington, and he's a win away from taking this team to the Super Bowl, which would be just an utter ride. I mean, it would be. It would be absolutely just crazy if Washington goes into Philadelphia. And Philadelphia right now is the betting favorite to not only get to the Super Bowl, but to win it. Forget about Buffalo. Forget about Kansas City. Bettors, sharp guys believe that an NFC team is going to represent and win it. And I know there was a take too. It's funny because everything gets blown out of proportion as we get closer to like championship Sunday or the Super Bowl. We want to take every little tidbit. We want to push narratives. We want to spin it the way we want to spin it. You got 4 very good teams in the conference finals, right? And you have all these other teams that are looking around the NFL trying to figure out, okay, how do we get there? How do we get there? Some teams have dealt with injuries, right? Some teams just deal with injuries. The Lions got snake bitten with their injuries early in the season, middle of the season, late in the season, but it shouldn't have derailed them and caused them to lose to Washington. They just did not play well. And then they got exploited. Minnesota, quarterback came back down to earth. Teams like San Francisco, talent, but banged up with injuries. Teams like, I'm trying to think, those borderlines right there. Cincinnati shot themselves in the foot because they started the season 0-3. And they have no one to blame but themselves. But they also got hit with some injuries at the worst time, right? It just happens in the NFL. But all these other teams that believe they're there, they're looking around, they're saying, man, how do we get to where these 4 teams are? How do we get to where these 4 teams are? And it's tough. I think what Kansas City is doing, the run that Kansas City has been on, is remarkable. It is Golden State-ish, Yankee-ish, Celtics-ish, Laker-ish. The 49ers dominated the decade of the 80s. Boston and the Lakers dominated the NBA in the 80s. The Bulls dominated in the 90s. Edmonton, the Islanders in the early 80s, and then the late 80s. It's a dynasty, Golden State. And when you have an opportunity to knock these guys off their perch, you better damn well bring your A game. It's going to be very hard for Buffalo to go into Kansas City and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And if they do, then they've earned the right to go to the Super Bowl. Kansas City beats Buffalo, I'll say the same thing. You earn the right. You have to beat the opponent that's in front of you. But it's really tough. And I'm wondering, is Kansas City at the point that, say, like the Bad Boys were in the NBA years ago? All those long playoff runs, all those long playoff runs, and just, grinding it out. And then the season was just, you creep into June because the NBA season is a long season. It's a very long season. And 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. Man, you do it for a long time and you're playing with the same guys and you're trying to play at the highest of high levels and every team's trying to knock you off your perch. That's where Kansas City is right now. That's where Kansas City is. I think Kansas City, and I'm not going to say they're vulnerable because they're the freaking Kansas City Chiefs. They won 15 games. They're back in an AFC championship, 7th straight year, which is unheard of. They're trying to get to the Super Bowl for the 3rd consecutive season, which is unheard of. It's unheard of. It really is. What Buffalo was able to do, you get to those AFC championships, fine. You never got over the hump. But with all that being said, listen, if Buffalo finds a way to beat Kansas City, I still want to sit there and say the dynasty is done. Maybe they just got picked off that one time. And maybe it's just not their year. Hell, 15-2 is a hell of a year. Going undefeated at home, it's a hell of a job. Getting to another championship, that is a major accomplishment. But Kansas City this year really hasn't beaten up teams like in years past. And maybe it's because it's a veteran bunch, getting a little older, a little more tired, been there, done it. Maybe, you have to be motivated enough to get home field. But, did we see their best game yet? Out of all the games Kansas City played, was their best game against the Texans? Is it going to be Sunday against the Bills? Was their best game early on in the season against Baltimore? It certainly wasn't the last game of the season where they sat everyone. No one cares that they lost to Denver 38-0. But have they played their best game? Is this the best that they are at this moment? And if that's the case, is that enough for Buffalo to beat them? We've seen Buffalo play at high levels this season. We've seen Washington play at high levels. Same argument can be made with the Philadelphia Eagles. All we heard all season long was the schedule. That's it. They had the bad loss against Atlanta. They didn't show up against Tampa Bay. Other than that, aside from, the Commanders game, the Eagles have put together a really strong season. 14 wins, 14-3. They're home again. The link is going to be absolutely bananas. They're riding the legs and the guts and the heart of number 26. We know Hurts is a little banged up. He's compromised. Who isn't at this point of the season? But have they played their A game? Do they even need their A game to beat Washington? Is Washington on borrowed time? Look at all these dramatic wins that the Commanders have had. And they've been very dramatic. And a lot of people, I would say right now, it's 70-30. 70 Eagles are winning, 30 that Washington has a puncher's chance. But they go on the road against Tampa Bay. They win it late. They go on the road against Detroit. They rout them. Is that their best effort? Is there that letdown coming right now? We're just happy to be there. That's going to be the beauty of Sunday. It really is. I think Q should have a Hall of Fame vote. I agree. I should, and I appreciate that, Trevor. No shot, not a single objective bone in Q's body. Listen, you go to the dog, that's off limits. I think we know that. The pup is off limits. 727-858-6650. All right, 4:35. Quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll reset the table. We'll get to some thoughts. You guys are commenting on Facebook. A lot of Jet fans, some disgruntled Jacksonville fans. We'll get into a little Hall of Fame as well. 5 o'clock, we'll do some hoops with our guy Reese Wood down there in Miami. The 76ers with an absolute no-show last night. A flat-out no-show. We'll save the NBA. We'll save the hoops talk in the 5 o'clock hour. But as I mentioned, NFL heavy. We'll take you up to 5, and then we'll close out, and then we'll get 60 to play with. Keep it locked in on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q.
Hey, Dad. Your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad. Your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey. Why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can.
making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
All right, 4:35. This segment powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensburg Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Also, their new location in Mount Laurel. As I mentioned, NBA, top of the hour in the 5 o'clock hour. What do we got here? Jerry in the Northeast chiming in. Q, I know you're going to give the Eagles a lot of grief over the next couple of days, but as you mentioned, they definitely deserve to be in this position. We know they're a very good team. I know you're not the biggest Sirianni fan, but what does it have to say about Sirianni that he's back in an NFC championship and a win away from making his second Super Bowl appearance? That's fair. That's fair. I can't be critical of a head coach, at least not at this point, right? Who's about, if he gets a win, he's going to have an opportunity to get to his second Super Bowl. I mean, listen, I tell you that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to put up the gaudy numbers and he just wins. Sirianni is a head coach. He just wins with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't have to like his antics. I don't think he's a very good head coach. But again, you know, he wins. He just wins. And I think that's what you're looking for. Are you not? Just give me a guy that wins, right? And when you win, you can deal with the theatrics. When you win, you can put up with a lot of stuff. Winning mask nonsense. You know, Pete Carroll, braggadocious on the sidelines. When you're winning, hey, nobody cares. You know, Robert Salah was just all animated when he was with San Francisco. He came in that press conference with the Jets and he wanted to kick down doors. Where was that guy? Where was that guy? That's one of the reasons he's no longer an NFL head coach at this moment. He's no longer with the New York Jets. Can Aaron Glenn be the guy? If we know Aaron Glenn is a defensive guy and he's a leader of men and he's going to get these guys playing, first of all, you got to have the right roster and talent in place. You got to figure out what you're going to do with the quarterback position. You have to have a sound GM. Do you not? So there's a lot of decision-making going on. Can't say the same thing with Jacksonville. You can't. You really can't. And that's a problem with the franchise. Jay in Orlando chimes in. Q, I'm not a Jacksonville fan. I'm a Dolphins fan. But quite honestly, I agree with you. Trent Baalke was definitely sabotaging. He didn't get along with the owner. The owner put him on notice, and now it's basically an FU. Yeah, but he got fired. That's the difference. That's the difference. The owner's not going to fire himself, right? And if you're sabotaging a franchise or the workplace and it's considered toxic, then you're not going to last. You're just not going to last. So I think it's a slippery slope that Jacksonville is on right now. I really do. My Commanders beat Detroit. Now vulnerable to emotional letdown against Eagles. Bills beat Kansas City. Emotional letdown against Eagles in the Super Bowl. That is a path to glory. That's not a path to glory. That's friggin' wishful thinking. That's what that is. I don't, as I mentioned it, Trevor, and I appreciate the comment, I don't believe in the NFL there's an emotional letdown. These are not 18-year-old kids. They're not. They're grown men. They're motivated. I mean, if you're a win away from getting to the Super Bowl and you can't get yourself friggin' motivated or hyped up, then you got the wrong profession, man. You got the wrong sport, brother. I mean, honestly, choose something else. I don't look at him. You can go on the road and win a dramatic game with a field goal or block a field goal or get a punt return or just a big play, miracle play. And you can still, maybe what Washington's doing, they've got some juju right now. They've got some juju. What they have is confidence. So even if the Eagles jump out to a 13-3 lead, a 13-zip lead, Washington's not going to panic. We've seen that. That is a fact. That quarterback's not going to get rattled. He's not. Same with the other side of the ball, with the AFC. Buffalo's not intimidated by Kansas City anymore. They're not. The Bills, I'm telling you, Bills relish this. The Bills want to go into Kansas City as opposed to being at home. They want to go into Kansas, the almighty Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, and here you go. They never lose. Refs on your side. Here's a script. Taylor Swift, Kelsey, Mahomes, Andy Reid get back to the Super Bowl. They relish this opportunity. And when you relish an opportunity, you realize you only get one shot here. You're going to take advantage of it. You have to rise to the challenge. And I think Daniels is going to rise to the challenge with Washington. I'm not saying that's going to be enough to beat the Eagles. And Josh Allen of Buffalo is going to rise to the challenge of Kansas City. Both these games, I believe, will be very competitive. And I'm hoping they come down to the fourth quarter. I really do. I'm hoping they come down to the fourth quarter because as football fans, we want to see some high drama in these playoff games. We do. We want to see high drama. We want to see games that are back and forth, the little white knucklers, as we like to say. Even if you don't have a dog in the fight. If you don't have a dog in the fight, just give me competitive games because I'm sitting here as a Giant fan and I'm watching what Jaden Daniels is doing and I'm like, this is remarkable. And there's a little bit of not the jealousy, but the wow factor of, man, look at Saquon now behind this offensive line, right? With the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts, just steady Eddie. And then Josh Allen has an opportunity to take a franchise to a Super Bowl and do something they've never done, and that's win it. Change the narrative, flip the script. And then Kansas City, if Kansas City gets back to the Super Bowl and Kansas City wins, they are immortalized. There are so many storylines. So as a fan, I love this. I really do. Man chimes in. D'Amico Ryan's in the same boat. Jury's still out on him. I think a lot of it has to do with CJ Stroud taking, well, then let me ask you this. Can't we say the same thing about CJ Stroud? CJ Stroud, look at the year that he had last season. He put up ridiculous numbers. I mean, they were beyond gaudy numbers. Everyone was taken aback. Oh my God, look at this kid. He's a flat out stud. This kid's a friggin' player. Here we go. They got a franchise quarterback. As a rookie, he put up monster numbers. We were expecting in, year number 2 to take that next jump, that next leap. We always talk about young quarterbacks, year number 2. They always arrive in year number 2. He's taking a step back, right? Has he not? So maybe it's also Stroud and also D'Amico Ryans. The jury's still out on both of them, respectively. How many times have there been trap games in the NFL? Chops are being set. The script has been written. Listen, I don't see a scenario where Washington gets blown out. If that's what you're asking me right now on a Wednesday. I don't. I think the Eagle fan knows this is not going to be a gimme game. And the Eagles fan also knows that this game's at home. So there's a little more pressure to win at home. This is not, look, if you think Washington's just going to come in and just lay down against the Eagles, they're not going to do it. That's a physical team, man. Now, listen, can you run on them? Yes, you can run on them. But they're a physical team. They're going to get to Jalen Hurts. They want to get to the quarterback. And when I say knock him out of the game, I'm not talking about cheap shot. They want their quarterback to be electric, making plays with his legs. They want their ground game to go, their wide receivers to get off. They want them to have big games. And they have a head coach that has instilled confidence right now in that franchise. They changed the whole culture of the franchise. So I believe if the Rams went in there, I would actually believe that, which they did, but I'm saying in the NFC Championship, I can see the Eagles smoking the Rams in an NFC Championship, not Washington. Now, the Eagles, we thought they were going to smoke the Rams, and it looked like it was going to be one of those games, and the Rams hung in there. But I'll take Daniels with his legs and athleticism than a banged-up Stafford, because we learned he was playing with a couple cracked ribs. He was banged up and hurt. Because right now, this team is just riverboat gambling, house money. They're letting it rip. And the X factor is Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, and Lake Lewis said this last week. Now, it's different because I think come Sunday, the best player on the field is number 26, Saquon Barkley. But I'll tell you this, right there next to him is Jaden Daniels. So we're talking about these X factors. Daniels will keep Washington in this game. So Eagles fans, do not overlook Washington. And if the Eagles turn around and blast them 31-10 on a Manolo Lunas Man Up Monday, I'll come on the show Monday and I'll say, hey, you guys were right. I just think it's going to be a little more of a competitive game. Well, they renamed the segment, Angel. I don't know what to tell you. They renamed the segment. That's what they do on the show. Wasn't me. So, all right, quick timeout. We got to close out this hour, and then we will turn around. And 5 o'clock, we will talk to our guy, Reese Wood, but we'll take a quick timeout. We'll close out hour number 1.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, fast approaching the 5 o'clock hour. Reese Wood will join us, talk a little hoops and basketball, a little NBA with him at 5 o'clock. Does a great job. He's a Philly guy. Does a great job with the Reese Wood Foundation. That'll be right at 5 o'clock. We had a bump. Our good friend, Jamie Driver, she'll join us next week. She's just BYB Extreme fighting. She just inked the contract with Brian Cohen. So we will definitely have a catch-up talk with her as well. But hey, good to see the man behind the glass. I mean, listen, there was talk. The people have spoken, Angel. They wanted you to make an appearance. They said, "Hey, the show needs a little juice. What's the hermano doing? Is he there? Is he around?" And here you are. And this is what he's doing. He's hard at work right now behind the glass. Are you going to pop in anytime? You let me know. There we go. We're going to get him. Coming up. Firing up. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
I be right here, live and in person.
There you are. There you are. I mean, yeah, we hit the break before, and all of a sudden you come back, disappeared, didn't see you in the box. I was like, what the hell's happening? The music started to override, and there we are. Hey, I know before we hit 5, because I know I have Reese right at 5.
Yep.
But good to see you, my friend. So your Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship. So you really can't complain, bitch, or moan today, can you?
No, even Pete said this morning if I was feeling good, and actually his wife had made a comment saying, "Whoops, there was some breaking news coming in. The Bengals finalizing deal to make Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Golden the new ODC in Cincinnati."
Is this what we're doing now? We're just playing on the friggin' phone while we're on the air. Who texted you? Who? I didn't hear you.
The NFL.
Whose wife? You said somebody's wife.
No, hold on. See, now you're gonna make me hang on.
This guy is all over the friggin' play. I got the NFL. The NFL just text you. That's good. All right.
The Bengals.
There you go.
It said the Bengals are finalizing a deal to make Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Golden the new DC in Cincinnati, according to Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport.
That's not a bad hire.
No,
I mean, their defense sucked. I mean, their offense was great. Their defense was horrible.
Yes. But no, getting to the question you asked, Pete said the same thing too, and his wife had chimed in this morning and said that who did I replace myself with? Because throughout the season, listen, I was riding the Eagles all season long for obviously reasons that are coming up this weekend, meaning that I can't really complain other than I still have the foot on the brake. I've got the other one on the gas.
God, it's the NFC Championship. Just for God's sakes, man, just enjoy it.
I am. That's what I'm saying. I am.
You are trying to come up with some lame ass reverse mush reason to not enjoy Sunday.
No, not at all. I'm going to enjoy Sunday. I'm not. I'm telling you that I have. Listen, I'm done with having to deal with anything come Eagles way this week. For me, if obviously, as always stated, it's for the Eagles to lose. The only thing that I said,
I just say
no,
don't come with the name. It is for what are so? What, I think Wednesdays are what? No negative Wednesday.
No, I know, but what
you're already coming with nonsense.
No, but what I was trying to get to is what we were talking about last week. Yeah. Prior to, we said that if the Commanders beat the Lions, right? What did we say? That the Commanders will probably be the one destined to go to the Super Bowl.
So they're playing with house money and they have some juju. Yes,
correct. So that's where I'm trying to get to.
Okay. So I know what you're saying. You're trying to in a perfect world now. You're trying to convince yourself because the Eagles are playing Washington. Washington has juju. So if the Eagles lose, you can always just revert back to, well, maybe it's just Washington's year. Maybe they've got this little magical fairy pixie.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I wouldn't even go that far.
Well, then just friggin' enjoy it, man, because you know what? It's utterly ridiculous. It's bad enough you got to friggin' text me it's only 53 when it's 17 degrees here and my poor dog is freezing her little hiney off. Then you're in the friggin' NFC Championship again. I got to watch your stupid coach cry when the national anthem comes down. I got to watch Saquon go off again for 200 yards against Washington, and you have an opportunity to go back to the Super Bowl. I mean, seriously, just stop. I don't want to hear it anymore.
I'm happy.
You know what? I liked it better, to be quite honest. When it was the Incredible Shrinking Hermano, your takes were actually more logical. But now that we're even Steven here, and we're both, I can't even say fair and balanced. I can't even say it.
Okay.
I can't.
Well, I'm just done. I'm happy. I don't know what else to say. Is that I'm happy. I'm happy that we're there. I'm happy that it's going through Philly. Hey, I even mentioned throughout the week, I think or maybe it's Saturday, I don't know, whatever hell day it was, I put out something saying that it felt like 2017 all over again. I'm not even going back to 3 years ago.
All right. Yeah, so you're going with that little juju and house money.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins came to town. Minnesota felt like they were, pounding their chest a little bit. And then we just told them, hold on for a second. Give me that air. Psst, see you later. Goodbye.
No, that was the NFC Championship. That was are you talking about the
Vikings?
That was Case Keenum. That was with Patrick
Keenum.
Robinson.
Same difference. Same difference. Now listen, if I would have been, okay, here's the flip side to everything. If I would have been the Uber fan.
I mean, honestly, Angel, I say this with respect. You're just talking out of your ass right now. You're really just, you're talking at, you are. You're literally, Case Keenum, you're talking out of your ass right now. I don't even know what to say. I'm a taken back.
Okay.
I'm taken back right now with this nonsense.
Here's a comment from Jerry from Rhode Island. As he says, Q, maybe he's happy when he's bitching about them. That's what fishermen do.
Wait, who's bitching? Wait, hold on. We need context on that.
He's probably talking about me, saying when I'm usually bitching about them, meaning the Eagles.
Yeah, but then he threw in the fisherman, and I thought maybe that was a slight little shot at me on Sundays.
But he's a fisherman.
Well, he's on the boat and he listens to us, and we appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, you have to have patience when you're out there. You understand that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is I think you're kind of spoiled as a sports fan, and that's what kind of bothers me.
Eagles fans are spoiled?
Over the last several years. Are you kidding me?
I wouldn't call it spoiled. We're not Patriots spoiled. We might just be spoiled.
That's a different animal. That's once in a generational, but you're constantly in the playoffs. It's going to be what? If you win again, it's your third Super Bowl appearance in how many years? 7, 8 years?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, what are we doing here? Got to watch the friggin' Phillies again? Make them play at deep playoff runs? Yankees can't even get out of their own way?
By the way, have Yankees done anything during the winter meetings since?
Listen, we'll talk baseball when the time comes. I mean, I can talk about the Sixers right now and just basically rolling over against Denver last night. What a bunch of freaking dogs they are.
Somebody called them out too. One of the media personalities called them out.
Oh, everyone's calling everyone out.
No. The head coach, if I remember correctly,
Nick Nurse went off on him.
No. Yeah, I know that, but I'm saying that basically the head coach from Denver was like, listen, you're getting paid to show up. You're accountable and something else. Basically, he called out Embiid without calling out Embiid.
Because he hasn't. I think the last time he played in Denver, Brady was quarterbacking the Patriots.
That's a while.
Yep. That's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
That's embarrassing when you think about it. If you're getting paid all that money and you're basically already you're pretty much saying that you're not going to play. And I got a problem with that. I really do. They gave him, that max money. They gave him a ridiculous amount of money. And look where we're at right now. The guy's just never available. That's the problem. He's never available, and it's a horrible look. It's a horrible look. And Paul George stinks.
Yep. That's why I don't freaking talk about them, because they're 15-0 at this point. They're not making the playoffs. I don't care who says what. You're not going on some crazy hot streak. It's already towards the end of January going to February. If you are not anywhere near 500, you can forget about in the NBA even attempting to get there. Once again, season ticket holders, you're welcome. That's what you guys are paying for. Oh, but it's more important to make sure that Josh Harris takes care of the Commanders instead of taking care of his own Sixers, and too busy about making deals in Center City when all around it just turned out to be they're going to stay in South Philly. So,
well, that's a story for another. I mean, that was a waste of a lot of money.
Yep. The mayor went out way out of her way. Way.
Hold on. You mean EIIGLS?
I've seen that video many a times. It's ridiculous. No, but the mayor went way out of her way to make that deal happen, and just to turn around and be like, what, slaps in the face.
Yeah. Angel, am I speaking angry to you?
No, why?
No, that's what I'm saying. This is how I am.
This is the normal talk between us.
That's what I'm saying. What? Madman's a little sensitive today. I don't know. Maybe it's an anniversary of 49ers. Probably, having a bad loss or something. I don't know what to say. It's a great point you brought up with the city, with Philly and the 76ers. I mean, that was an absolute waste of time and money, because you knew a new stadium wasn't going to be built.
Nope.
No, and that's just
especially where they won it. It was. Do you understand like the amount of traffic? And it was kind of
logistically in Center City. Are
yeah.
you kidding me? Who are you
Let's not
telling?
forget when they were making Comcast 1 before Comcast 2, and that detour of a mess that I ended up taking, it was absolutely insane.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, speaking of a little hoops talk, let's welcome in my guy. You know what? He's probably enjoying the nice, warm weather down there in Florida. My man Reese Wood. What's going on, brother? Been a minute.
Hey, Rich, how you doing, man?
I'm doing. Are you now? You're in Miami right now, right?
Yes, I am in Miami. Yeah,
What's it? 60, 50?
something like that today. Today the weather's not the best, but I'm sure it's better than what you got been facing.
It's horrible, man. We're just freezing all over. By the way, Reese is CEO, founder of Reese Wood Foundation. It's an organization that provides basketball training to athletes as well as the community. He is a Philly guy, John Bartram High School, a big time baller as well. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, by the way, the last time we were talking about some of these movement in the NBA prior to the season. I want to get to that in a moment, but how about the current state of the Philadelphia 76ers right now, where this team looks like a bunch of friggin' dogs? No Embiid, George looks slow and old, nurses calling people out. What's going on with the Sixers?
Man, if I had the answer, I could tell you. I hate to say it, especially I'm a little bit biased because one of my close friends in the world, Kyle Lowry, one of my childhood friends, and I trained him. So I hate the fact that he's going through this and they're going through this. I don't think everyone is playing up to their maximum level that they could play. And I just think they need to kind of sort of just regroup and see if they can finish out the year strong and maybe make a push for at least the 7th or 8th seed in the playoffs. But in terms of what's going on right now, I can't put my finger on it, so I don't even know, to be honest with you.
Is it tough though? Like when you play or you're paying these players the money that they're being made, like Embiid prior to the season already coming out talking about not playing the back-to-backs and the travel and the logistics. I mean, we talked about this. Pop started this years ago with resting players when it was Duncan and Robinson and Ginobili, and now the NBA is driven by marquee stars. Period. They have to be out there if they're willing to be out there. So I know the Sixers are, you got ties to the Sixers. I get it. I respect it. Players like Embiid or some of these franchise players, when you're making 100, 200, 250 million, man, you got to be out there.
I agree. I do. I don't believe in like the old rest system as well as like taking games off. I think your love and your passion for the game has to play a factor in this. And then also you can't disappoint your fans. There's a lot of people in this world who pay good money to see these guys play. So I think you got to suck it up if it's feasible, right? Sometimes guys are just really, really injured. But if it's one of those little knick-knack injuries that you can push through, I do believe that you should play. And then also, like your competitive nature has to kick in. You don't want to have like a persona when you're in a league that you're like soft or you're just dodging people. I think you should compete at all times at the highest level possible.
Well, you know what it is? Sometimes I also think teams get they're tired, right? Mentally fatigued. They're physically tired. I think that's one of the issues right now with the Sixers. You look at a team like Cleveland with Mitchell and Garland, they're putting up numbers. That's a young team. They seem legit, consistency, continuity. The Celtics are the Celtics. My Knicks are starting to win a little bit. Magic or a young team. If you're not solid, and you know this on the defensive end of the floor, and you got a head coach that wants to run you up and down. I mean, last night Denver had 18 fast break points in the first quarter. I mean, that to me that reeks of a tired team, physically and mentally.
I agree. I think honestly, it's funny you mentioned the Knicks. I was watching them the other day. They were playing against somebody I can't quite remember, and I was just excited how good they look now. But 2, 3 years ago, it wasn't that great. So the fact that they have a complete team now and they still consider the Nova Knicks is an amazing thing, So Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, they got those guys going over there. I actually think the Knicks, they can make a strong push to come out the East this year, in my personal opinion.
Really? See, I still think everything goes through Boston, and I just, I look at the depth that scares me a little bit. They had a nice win the other night against Atlanta after they lost to Minnesota. And then they came back. They got past Brooklyn. I feel as though the NBA it's pick and roll where you're living and you're dying right by the 3-point shot. And I think sometimes this for playing and coaching and training players your whole life. Come playoff time, man, half court offense, you got to lock down and play defense, but you also need a primary ball handler to bring the ball up and down the floor to kind of break down these defenses. I'm not saying the Knicks don't have it, right? I mean, how much can you expect for Brunson to kind of go out there and look? We don't have to say he's carrying the team right now because Cat is playing above and beyond. I mean, we're talking about early MVP candidates. He's close. With these monster double doubles and Bridges and OG. I mean, they've got depth. McBride. They got players that are contributing. But man, I still think Boston is going to be. I think Boston's going to have a say. I think Cleveland's going to have a say. I want to get your thoughts on the Cavs. I think the Cavs are legit. I don't think there's this issue of they have arrived, too quickly. Milwaukee is still Milwaukee, and I think that's your four right there: Cleveland, Boston, the Knicks, and Milwaukee.
I think those are the top four for sure. For me, obviously, I can understand why you say about the Boston piece because they won a championship last year, and I totally respect that. And they're the champions until, someone takes it from there. I just don't like how the team to settle for a lot of jump shots, in my personal opinion. So I think Tatum is amazing, but he settled for too many like three-pointer shots. I think he would be that much better if he was to put pressure on the defense more and get to the basket more, in my opinion. But with the Knicks, I think they just play like that old school scrappy basketball. They locked in on D. They have a lot of heart. They have their superstar in Brunson. I think they have the perfect complementary pieces around him for guys to do all the dirty work on the defensive end of the floor. And he kind of sort of just can facilitate the team on offense. I don't really trust Milwaukee. I don't think Dame Lillard has looked like the old Dame, since he's been in Milwaukee or whatever. I think obviously Giannis he's dominant, but offensively, in my opinion, you still don't know which Giannis is going to show up. And I just don't truly believe in Cleveland yet, in my personal opinion. So if I had to give a say, it will be the Knicks or Boston, but I'm going to give a slight edge to the Knicks right now in this moment.
Never thought I'd hear a Philly fan say that, but I'll
I know,
take
right?
it.
And I hate to admit that, but I can't root for my Sixers right now, so I guess I'll do the
No.
next team close to us.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, and by the way, Reese Wood joining us does a great job with his Reese Wood Foundation. Had an outstanding career, obviously, back in the day, 2003, Philly Public League Championship, 2-year starter, excelled athletically, was a big time player, senior year, team captain, all public. Where'd you play? Was it Wiley College?
Yeah, I wound up going to Wiley College down in Marshall, Texas, Division One NAIA school. For me personally, that was the best thing that I needed to happen for me, just to get away and grow up and find myself as a person, and then also as a basketball player, just able to kind of sort of like separate myself from my childhood peers and things of that nature. So I'm grateful for being able to make that transition from Philly down into Texas and have a sustainable career there, and then go over and play professional for some time afterwards.
When we talked a little bit, when you mentioned, professional, we know that the league, they want to get that, that we saw the European flavor over the last several years, and it's an international sport. Um, I always try to tell people European players aren't soft. Like there's this perception. I see you smiling. There's this perception, depending upon where you played, some of these European players, they come in an NBA, they're soft. I mean, I feel as though that's a narrative people want to push, man. These cats can play.
No, those guys are not soft. Actually, the game is more physical over there than here. And the reason why they're not soft is I think they know they aren't as athletic as us American players, so they play a little bit more physical, whatever the case may be. And they're not soft. They're dogs. Actually, it just come across that they're soft because they are European players. But those guys, they're extremely talented. You see what the top European players
Oh
are
yeah.
doing in the NBA right now, like Jokic and Giannis and Luka and so forth and so forth. So they're not too far behind. I don't think they're on like our level 100%, but they're right there. So I'll be the first to tell you from my personal playing experience, they're not soft at all, to be honest with you.
I mentioned obviously you're down in Miami in the Heat. We talked a little bit about Jimmy Butler. You hate to see when it comes down to this, a player that has meant so much to a franchise, and then all of a sudden in the NBA, it is a players driven league. And more times than not, we would see the head coach get fired. I don't think that's going to be the case here in Miami. It's more or less, we're going to part ways with the player, but that's tough to see because Butler has meant so much to the Miami Heat over the last several years.
So I think with stories like that, not just Jimmy Butler, but any other superstar that go through things, there is so much more to the story than what we may know, or whatever the case may be. We're from the outside looking in. We only read in what the media is putting out. So I'm sure Jimmy Butler acted that way because he felt that he had probable cause. So we just never know. Obviously, living in Miami, I hate to see it, But at the same time, I'm not a Heat fan. Like honestly, I could care less about the Heat. So if he
Right,
leave
right,
for me, it won't hurt me. But
right.
I think like a lot of my people here that I'm close with, they don't want to see him go. And then more importantly, like, it's just too much drama. So no one wants to see their home superstar go through that as well as their franchise. So, but if I'm not mistaken, they figured it out now, right? Because he just played last night, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
yeah.
So I
But
think hopefully they can repair the relationship and they can get back on track.
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's what you want. You want to come to a certain common ground, certain middle point where it's almost like a negotiation, right? No one's ever really happy, and he had 13 last night, even though they lost to Portland. I got to ask you about your guy LeBron, man. And I say it in tongue in cheek, man. I mean, come on, man. What are we? Are we just you know? Um, uh, uh, patting the stats right now at this point. I mean, I couldn't stand listen, he wanted his kid drafted. We got it. He wanted his guy head coach. We talked about the relationship. You're bringing on your guy and you got to coach these guys. And if you disagree with something, there's going to be an issue. But man, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I used to really have a ton of respect for LeBron James. He's an all-time great. And now I just kind of watch, and maybe it's because, I'm looking around, I'm seeing more of the young guns, coming out of the Western Conference. And look, the Lakers are right there. I mean, they're right there with the Clippers, but it's just, oh man, I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I don't think necessarily LeBron is padding his stats. I think it's obviously he still can play at a high level, right? Like you've never seen a 40-year-old still dominate
Oh, that's fair.
a
Not,
basketball game or whatever.
yeah,
So I feel like if a person is just being honest with themselves and their body's talking to them, they like, look, we need to go and walk away. He'll walk away, but the guy's still dominating. I'm not the biggest LeBron fan in the world, but I respect the fact that he's still playing and still dominating and able to kind of sort of lead those young guys. But I think most people feel like he had his time already. So go ahead and walk away gracefully, like gracefully bow out. But at the same time, he still feel like he got a lot more in the tank. And like, who are we to tell him to walk away
no.
if he's still putting up really, really good numbers?
That
So
that I will agree with you 100% because when you think you're done, you think you're done. I mean, listen, the one thing I always enjoy with the NBA or the hoops conversation, sometimes you get players or former players who are outspoken. They have these outlandish comments like, what was it? Parsons turning around that, Kevin
yeah.
Durant's better than Kobe Bryant. I mean, come on, man, you're a Philly guy. Kobe Bryant was a friggin' assassin. He was a dog. People, I don't understand why the younger generation of players don't really understand the history of the NBA. And I'm not even, you go back further, Magic and Bird, and talk about the players that cut their teeth to make the NBA what it was coming up in the late 70s and the 80s. But man, to suggest that's goofy talk.
I mean, but is it goofy? Everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? Like,
That's goofy, man. You can't, listen, who would you compare to LeBron to? Not Michael Jordan, correct? Who would you compare him?
uh, no, I would probably say like Magic in terms of being able to like
Why,
like
even
do a
though
lot
you're
of different things on
yeah,
the court.
yeah. You're in
But
Miami,
like I
you're in
think the comparison with Jordan because Jordan, quote unquote, is the greatest of all time. So you always gonna chase the greatest of all time in
yeah,
terms of
but we're
comparisons.
talking game wise. I get it, and
Oh
I
yeah, no,
agree.
for sure.
But
For
game wise,
Magic, 100%.
it has to be Magic, right? So to me, to even, I feel as though it's a slight on Kobe. First of all, half of these guys, right? But follow me for a second. Yeah, Dr. J passed his prime with the Sixers. ABA. Here we go. High flyer. Who's going to replace him? Here comes this guy out of North Carolina. Who's going to replace him? All right. We're waiting to someone replace Michael Jordan. Is it going to be Carter? Is it going to be Kobe? Is it going to be Allen Iverson? Is it going to be McGrady? It's always the next guy. Now it's LeBron. Now it's the next guy. Like all those guys paved the way. So it's like, give me some substance behind that debate because everywhere, Kobe won. Kobe was an assassin. Kobe played hurt. Kobe wanted the ball. Durant, I'm sorry. No disrespect on the greatness of Durant. He does not want the friggin' ball in the fourth quarter, and he's jumped all over the place. That's
I
what
mean,
bothers me.
that's true. I agree. Also, being diplomatic, like you got to respect people's opinions. People are always going to like what they like, and we can't try to convince people to like what we like. So that's how I look at it. I do my best to never, ever, ever, ever talk about basketball with people because their basketball mind is not going to line up with mine, and I'm probably going to get upset trying to convince them to see things how I want them to see it. Then I look crazy because I'm trying to make them see things my way. People are entitled to their
But you're a
opinions.
basketball
So
savant. That's why you're on. You're a basketball savant, man. I
yeah.
respect your opinion. And if you're telling me I'm cuckooey for questioning his opinion, I'll take it with a grain of salt, man. But I'm just laying out, I'm laying the land for you. Kobe is an all-time great.
I mean, LeBron is too. They just I think it's a bad comparison because they two different types of players. So I think that's my thing. And I think the biggest thing about that is like when you always hear like the comparison talks of the greatest of all time, Jordan name always comes up, which means he is the greatest of all time because his name is never not included in the conversation. That's how I sum it up. You're going to compare Jordan to LeBron. You're going to compare Jordan to Kobe, but Jordan name is always mentioned. So I just leave it at that and just walk away from the conversation.
Does it make a player a great player any less of a great player when he's surrounded by wall-to-wall Hall of Famers? Like that's another argument someone tried to bait me when they were talking about the Celtics or the Celtics and the Lakers, two teams in the NBA Finals throughout the 80s. Like, can you fault that you're playing with wall-to-wall Hall of Famers?
No, I don't think so. It is what it is. That's not your decision. It's your management decision to bring those guys in. And I just think you got to accept it for what it is.
Yeah, I know I got you for another minute or so. Give me a pop on the foundation. What are you guys doing down there with that? I know you
So with the
work hard.
foundation, of course, we had the girls segment started this past February 2024. Now we have 7 boys teams from 3rd grade to 11th grade. We are competing like pretty much AAU. We normally do like 2 tournaments per month. We just had a tournament this past weekend, and then we have the girls tryouts. Actually, this weekend coming up, we're going to do middle school girls 6 to 8, and then we got our high school girls. So we're just getting prepared for that. Still doing stuff in the community, like giving back to the community, and just kind of sort of just for me personally, I always want to like bridge the gap between like girls and boys, meaning I don't ever want to leave the girls out or I don't ever want to leave the boys out. So I just want to kind of sort of do my part, just being able to like just to impact the game for males and female players. That's the reason behind the foundation travel program.
Yeah, everyone's got to give it a follow, reesewoodfoundation.com. You can check out a lot of photos, training videos, contact, follow on social media. Now, would I remember when we first interviewed and I said, I think that the question was more or less about you playing overseas and then if you were going to get drafted by the NBA. And I think you kind of made, the tongue-in-cheek comment. If I was playing in the NBA, I wouldn't be doing this
It's
interview.
the truth. If I'm telling you, if I was in the NBA, we wouldn't know each other, Rich. I'm serious, and my bank account would be a lot different. So maybe it's a good thing that I didn't make it. That's just the truth. That's just the truth.
Did you enjoy your time playing overseas?
I did. I truly did. Every day, like I felt like I felt blessed, like just coming from like a poverty-driven neighborhood, and me being like every other person ever picked up a basketball. For like, God blessed me to be able to live my dream. And if I'm being honest, like I didn't really work hard. I didn't really know what it was to work hard. I was just went to the local park and just played pickup games, and I got good enough to be a pro. But if I knew what it was to work hard, things would have been different in a positive way. I didn't really like where I played at. Like I played in Ireland. But it was like gloomy all the time and the weather and like broken English. But at the same time, I knew it was a blessing. So I just kind of sort of sucked it up and got through it.
Listen, it's a fascinating story because you made the point. Sometimes you just got to leave certain things behind you and just kind of stay the course and go on with your life. And that's always
Yeah.
a tough thing to do, right? Because a lot of people sit there and say, if you're traveling with the wrong pack of friends, this, that, the other thing, and you want to go in a different direction, you got no heart, you got none. I mean,
People always got something negative to say, but you got to use that as motivation and to prove them wrong. That's how I look at life. Like I'm okay with people, hypothetically speaking, saying bad things to me because I'm just going to prove you wrong on purpose. That's how I look at it.
well, Wednesdays, it's a no negative Wednesday on the show.
I never knew that.
Yeah, well, we try not to be negative. I mean, obviously, what some of my, texters and commenters feel that I'm too negative with certain things, but I try.
No, you're not negative as a person. I don't agree with that statement.
Thank you. See that's what I need. I need my Miami family to come and get my back for a little bit, right? But all right, brother. Listen, I know you're in the gym. I know we were tight for time. I always appreciate you making a couple moments for me. If you want to promote social media or plug, if anyone can get a hold of you and follow along with the foundation.
Yep. No, thank you for having me first and foremost. But yeah, the social media is Reesewood Foundation, and the foundation is the Foundation Travel Ball. So if you guys feel comfortable, give us a follow, and you can stay updated on what we're doing over here.
All right. Before we know it, we'll be talking about my Knicks in the playoffs. So we will. I guess I'll have you back on. Right around the All-Star break, so we can talk a little more NBA. I want to get into a little college hoops with you too. And I know Reese is having.
Sorry, could you
There
say
you
that
go.
again?
Yeah, I said right around. We'll talk a little more college hoops the next time you come on. I definitely want to dive into more of the international, your experience playing overseas as well. I'm fascinated by that, and then hopefully my Knicks have a good seeding, and we can talk about the Knicks in the playoffs.
We can cheers to the Knicks as well as my playing career. That's
There
cool
we
with
go.
me.
Yes, that works, man. All right, brother. I always appreciate
Thank you, Rich.
you. Got it, bro. All right, there you have it, my guy. Reese Wood. He's a really, really good guy, man. Does a great job in the community, gives up a lot of his time and energy and effort, and he's giving back. And I interviewed him in that pod. That was a couple months ago. I interviewed him. We talked a little bit about his upbringing in Philly and some bad areas and bad neighborhoods, and he just wanted to try to get out of there. And I think that's always tough to do for any type of athlete, any type of person, when you're trying to make yourself better and have an opportunity to just go and do better things. Sometimes you got people that are nipping at your heels. And that's just how it is. Trevor Harris just used it as a negotiating tool. You're talking about the Washington, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to get over that. Doesn't matter if he's with the Sixers or Washington. Bring the hand check and the legal defense back. Yes. See, there we go. There we go. And I did hear that the other day. Yes, what LeBron is doing is amazing at his age. That doesn't mean I have to like it. I mean, I listen, LeBron's a great player. Mount Rushmore. All I was saying before is, for the NBA guys that listen to me religiously, your apples and oranges, LeBron to Jordan. Give me LeBron to Magic. By the way, the Sixers the other night, that's embarrassing. You cannot put that type of product on the floor. You can't. Cavs are legit. They're going to have staying power, but it's human nature to basically get tired of losing. And I don't know how many Sixers fans thought they were going to be this bad when the season started, or all these things that can go wrong. I mean, you brought in Paul George. You want an offensive boost. He looks like a shell of himself. All right, 727-858-6650. Portion of the show from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget, check out the show notes. Purchase 20% off your first purchase. You know why, Angel? Because we love fresh roasted coffee. And what do we do while we're having our fresh roasted coffee? What is the best phrase? I feel like this is an 80s commercial. What's the phrase that we love? What's the phrase that pays when it comes to coffee?
Top you off, hun.
That's exactly what they do. If you guys check out freshroastedcoffee.com. Yeah, I can't wait to get Reese back on, man, because he had a really nice career overseas as well. Just a hoops junkie, so I can definitely appreciate that.
You can tell the passion that he has just from listening to him for that short amount of time, and what he wants to do with his foundation and what he's doing with the foundation altogether. But I was checking it out here on the side. I didn't want to bring it up and then throw everybody off, because I don't want him to think that we're going off when it switches in between screen, because sometimes it throws people off. But I'm looking at it. It's a really good foundation. So, good.
He does really good work. He does really. I mean, look, it's time consuming to do anything when it comes to a foundation, or get funds, or get financing, or, when you're putting yourself out there for the community and you're trying to make the community better, you're taking young people and you're mentoring them. It is very time consuming. So I definitely appreciate him jumping on board. Real quick, Joe D. Summers Point chimes in. Q, you always talk about the Hall of Fame voting. Now you have a couple guys that you mentioned over the years. What's your take on Andrew Jones? So I've had Steve Gardner on, as you know, from USA Today, and we always talk about, and to Trevor's point, and a couple guys that are chiming in, if you answer this for me. If you have to ask if the player is a Hall of Fame player, does that typically mean he's not? Like if I have to ask you, hey, Angel, do you think so-and-so is in the Hall of Fame? Like, everyone will always say, if you have to ask, he's not a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Okay. So Andrew Jones, Don Mattingly should be in the Hall of Fame. He's got comparable numbers to Kirby Puckett. I'll say that for another day. But Andrew Jones, you can make the case when you look at his career. They called him up very early. Remember, he was 19 years old. and he had a couple home runs against the Yankees in the World Series. I mean, the Yankees went on to win that World Series, but he went off on a national stage. He had 2 home runs in game 1, and everyone just was like, "Oh my God, here we go!" Right? 2005, he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. But listen, so I look at his career, and he was a 5-time All-Star, but where you would say Andrew Jones is a Hall of Famer, he was a 10-time Gold Glove Award winner. He led the league in home runs, I think, 2005. He hit close to 500 home runs. I don't care about a 254, 260 batting average. He was a feared slugger, period. Period. He put up monster numbers. His glove, you can argue, one of the best defensive outfielders ever. Generational talent in that regard. He's not even getting a sniff. Like some of these guys are not even getting, this is his 8th year on the ballot, I believe. And I don't know what they're looking at. Like the fact that, and a couple of you guys commented, that one voter did not vote for Ichiro is ludicrous. Like if I've given you the trust to make the selection, right? To make the selection, you're a voter. I'm entrusting you with this. You've earned the right. You've covered the sport. You've written. You've gone whatever. Then do right by it. Like, we're just not handing out passes here for some of these Hall of Fame voters. And I think some of them, there are agendas. There are agendas with some of these media guys. There's our agendas with some of these reporters. There are agendas with people that have a vote that maybe a player rubbed them the wrong way. You know, Boston couldn't stand, the media couldn't stand Jim Rice. You're going to tell me Jim Rice wasn't a Hall of Famer? Schmidt did not get along with the Philly media. He didn't get along with the Phillies fans until, they won, and it was still a contentious relationship. You're going to tell me he's not arguably one of the best or the greatest third baseman of all time? He's not a Hall of Famer? I mean, it doesn't make sense sometimes. And if I'm going to give you a vote, don't take advantage of it. And I think you have a lot of old-time baseball writers, and this is where I kind of butt heads with Steve in this regard, that they're stuck in their ways. Now, I pulled up Billy Wagner's stats, and I'll leave it to you guys. You tell me if this is Hall of Fame worthy. Okay? Hall of Fame worthy, mind you. So this is Billy Wagner. And Billy Wagner had a really great career. He did. But am I going to put Billy Wagner, was Billy Wagner more of a compiler late in his career? Remember, he hung around, right? He was great with the Astros, cup of coffee with the Phillies, hung around with the Mets, and then Boston, and then Atlanta. And I felt like, we're trying to get to that saves record. So he got 82%. So he's a 7-time All-Star. I think he was one time in the NL, like reliever of the year, so to speak. And I'll give you his numbers. And you tell me. This is when, what did he finish his career with? Billy Wagner stats. So he first appeared in 2016. He received 10.5% of the vote. You need 75%. That's required for election. Then it jumped to 46%. Wow. In 2021, 51% in 2022, 68%, which tells you, right? Trending. All right. I'm starting to see. And then it jumped to 73. And then in 2025, he got the 82%. So he was trending in that direction. But I'm going to pull up the stats. Again, I'm not saying he's not, but I just sometimes I think it's very subjective is my point. So Billy Wagner saved 422 games. You would say, wow, that's incredible. Yes, it's incredible. But this is towards the end of his career. 30, I would say 2007 was his last really good year, 34 saves. Then 2008, he had 27. He had none in 2009, and he bounced around. I think he had injuries. Then he came back and he had 37 at age 38. Yeah. His two best years were 2003. I think he was top 5 in Cy Young. Maybe Wagner's not the best example to use. I think some guys are compilers in baseball. That's my point. But again, I'll ask you. You also believe that the voting is skewed. Like there's some old time voters that just will not give an inch if they have a personal vendetta.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, easily. Because again, it comes down to, I'm the same way too. Honda Road to Ichiro, not going on a landslide. So yeah, I think even if, let's just say, for example, I don't like Alex Rodriguez, does it stop me from saying he's going to go into the Hall of Fame? Everybody knows he's going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's a great point you bring up because hold on a second. What's the one caveat with a guy like Bonds, Clemens, McGuire, Rodriguez, Palmeiro, Sosa? Yeah.
Right. But, again, they're going to let that go by. They're going to bypass it and just say, all right, we're going to get him in there. I personally don't think he should go in there, but I know he's got the numbers to provide to say so. But yeah, I think when it comes down to some of these guys that have been around for a long period of time, if there's someone in particular that they don't like, they're like, nah.
Yeah. But I think though, with the steroid, I think with some of these guys, they are compilers. And I think compilers should be viewed differently with the Hall of Fame voting. So Kurt Warner, Terrell Davis, they did not have the longest careers, but Warner obviously cut his teeth with the Rams, winning a Super Bowl, and then taking the Cardinals after the Giant debacle. He had 3, 4, 5 outstanding years. Terrell Davis, obviously 2,000 yards, couple big monster seasons. The playoffs is where he cut his teeth. I think the NFL, we look for the body of work in the NFL. And if you had like an explosive 4 or 5 year career, then we would consider you the best in the game. Is that enough to get you in the Hall of Fame? NFL is a little different, right? NFL is a little different. Baseball, Harold Baines is a nice man. Harold Baines, I don't look at Harold Baines and say Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer. My point is Harold Baines is a compiler. We have to look at things differently.
Right.
Harold Baines was 40 years old when he had 111 hits in 1999. He then played 1, 2, 3, 4. He played 2 more seasons where he just compiled. Prior to that, if you actually go back, 1997, he had 136 hits. He didn't have a ton of hits in 1997, 1998, 1999. Compile. Why? Because I'm trying to get to 3,000 hits. I'm trying to get to 500 home runs.
Yep.
Like, when I think of Harold Baines, I think of a steady, consistent player, not a feared guy, not a feared slugger. That's what I'm saying. That's my point, I think. And I'm sorry, I can't read Jerry's comment.
If Schilling was a liberal, he'd be in the Hall. He has better numbers than CC.
So, interesting point, right? Jerry's in Rhode Island, probably Boston guy, Red Sox guy. CC Sabathia was a workhorse on the mound. And I'll tell you this, I think CC got in because CC won well over. Did Schilling win 300 games?
I want to say yes.
I don't think Kurt Schilling. I think Kurt Schilling won. How many games did Kurt Schilling win? CC won 250. No, Kurt Schilling won 216. But here's the difference. Well, here's the difference. And I know what Jerry's going to probably text in. Talking about the postseason.
Correct.
Like, Kurt Schilling made his bones, cut his teeth in the postseason. If we're going full body work, including the postseason, yeah, you would say Kurt Schilling is a Hall of Famer. And to my point, maybe some of the voters look at his political views, and that's one of the reasons they're not going to stick him in. CC Sabathia, his WAR was 62. He won 252 games. His ERA was under 3.4. That's not a bad ERA. And he chewed up a ton of innings. And I also believe, and I'll have to pull it up, I also think, Angel, if you get 3,000 strikeouts, CC Sabathia, how many Cy Youngs? He won 1 or 2 Cy Youngs, and I don't think. I mean, I should know this. I don't think Schilling ever won a Cy Young.
Sure he did.
No, Kurt Schilling. I don't think Kurt Schilling ever won a Cy Young. I don't. I think the best he ever finished was probably 2001 when he was with the Arizona Diamondbacks, because I think Randy Johnson won it that year. I think his best finish was like 2 or 3. Sabathia won a Cy Young. And I think that speaks volumes sometimes. In your top 5, top 10, I'm not going to tell you Schilling is not. But I just think hanging around 4 or 5 years, right, just to kind of pad the stats, I kind of look at the whole body of work. I mean, I guess it's apples and oranges in different sports, right? I think all the steroid players should get in. When was the last time they interrupted another game or sport to watch McGuire Sosa chase a home run record? That was 1998. The hypocrisy, and it's a great comment by
Trevor.
Yeah, because if you take the summer of 98 away, you've lost baseball. You've lost the fans. You lost the fans. The hypocrisy is, and the contradiction is, that everyone knew these players were juicing. I mean, come on. Yeah. Everyone. But was the commissioner at the time, Bud Selig, he's turning a blind eye because ratings are up. And Trevor's right. I remember watching those last several games, Sosa, McGuire, watching it with my father, and them go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is not like having the Greenies or Uppers in the 70s, right? I mean, the Bass brothers started this, McGuire and Canseco. And then obviously it just blew up from there. And the numbers are ridiculous. You got a guy like Brady Anderson, not like Larry Sheets hitting 30 home runs in 88, but Brady Anderson hitting 50 home runs. Everyone's eyes are going to open up. We knew these guys were juicing. I don't believe it's, to me, if you're going to stick them in, you stick them in. If you want to put an asterisk or a note, so be it. But are you going to tell me you cannot talk about the history of sports, say baseball, without bringing up names? As much as I can't stand him and I won't recognize him as the all-time home run leader. I won't.
Me either.
I won't as Bonds. But you can't tell me the Bonds, the Rodriguez's, the Clemens, arguably one of the most dominant pitchers of our generation. You're not going to stick him in. If you're going to do it, put the little ass or a separate wing. And I think what's happening is the younger voters or the newer reporters, the media guys that are covering the sport, I think they're naive to what happened 20, 30 something years ago. And I shouldn't say naive, but maybe they don't care as much as the guy that was doing voting in the 70s and 80s. Trying to make a case for Ryan Sandberg, all these years, trying to make a case for Dick Allen, trying to make a case for Kirby Puckett, still trying to make a case for Don Mattingly. The numbers are basically comparable. They're the same friggin' things. Nick and Wallingford chimes in. Q, you've been crying about this for the last 20 years since I've been listening to you on 1290 Ticket in Delaware 15 plus years ago. Let these guys in. Stop being on the high horse when it comes to steroids. We all knew they took them. I'm not saying don't. Again, let them in. I'm saying ultimately they're probably going to get in. It doesn't mean I have to like it.
Right.
I don't know. Why does it have to be sports? When we do voting, everything's subjective, right? In the NFL, everyone's going to turn around and just, have their, what in a bunch when it's time for my guy, Eli, and the voting process and the body of work and the resume and this, that, the other thing. Fine. So you measure quarterbacks by wins. You measure quarterbacks by championships. Certain sports are a little different. The NBA when you're elected into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, I can take into consideration your overseas career, international, college, plus your pro. Baseball, I'm not talking about what you did in minor leagues. Warren Moon, CFL, put up the numbers, and then all of a sudden, boom, the NFL. Look at his career record. What did he ever win? No disrespect to Warren Moon. I've interviewed him. I like him. Again, Burt Bylevin, I had him on the air once, and great guy. And I'll never forget, I said to him, and it's funny. I said, with all due respect, I looked at your numbers and I don't think of you as a Hall of Famer. And he chuckled and he literally, I'm kind of like tongue in cheek, was, you watch baseball? And I said, yeah, I watch baseball, but I said it in respect. And I got him on as soon as he got in. I was happy for him, but I have to be fair. Like Burt Bylevin was a compiler. He was a compiler. He was a all-star one time, two times. I'm not going to take away from his career. He was 30-something games over 500, but he compiled his way to get to almost 300 wins. Now, I can make the argument that Tommy John is a Hall of Famer because without him, we're not talking about Tommy John surgery and him coming back. You look at his numbers, gaudy numbers. Guy won 288 games. 200, almost won 300 games. There's a surgery named after him.
Tommy John.
Tommy John.
Yep.
I think it's so subjective. I think it's very subjective.
Well, is it a time for a change then for some of these, I guess, older Hall of Fame voters that have a nod in the game to say, you know what, maybe it's time for you guys to kind of step away because it is, there are some guys that have, I mean, they've been on the ticket, for 7 times, I think 8 you're out. And how in the world are you not at this point telling me there's some guys who did everything by the book and they're still not in because you just have this thing against them?
It's, very good point here, right, Jay? Talking about Murphy, Mattingly, Keith Hernandez, NL MVP, Dwight Evans. Right. Maybe we look at, again, some of these guys because of the steroid era and it hurts their careers. But ultimately, I think, Angel, what's going to happen is the voters are just going to submit to it. Because you can't tell the tale without something. Right. You can't. You can't. They won't put steroid players in, but the compilers get in. Yeah, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. You get in. It's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Average. It's not the Hall of Very Good. It's not the Hall. And don't tell me what the moral ground and the character and all the stuff. I get it. I know. I'm the one that for years, I turned around and I would argue with Hall of Fame voters. Pete Rose did the cardinal sin. Pete Rose this, Pete Rose that, Pete Rose this. No way, no way. And then all of a sudden I started to soften my stance because I realized there's no way you can tell the history of the sport of baseball without Pete Rose. Yep. And if Pete Rose would have been contrite, and if Pete Rose was on Nightline back in the late 80s and basically admitted to what he did, Pete Rose most likely would have had a better shot of getting in while he was alive. And I stand by this. Now that he's passed, God rest his soul, hopefully he's found a little peace, Pete Rose will get in because he's left this earth. He's going to get in now. There's going to be this sentiment of Charlie Hustle, this sentiment of the Hit King, this sentiment of Pete Rose and what he meant to the game. And we will quickly forget all the gambling stuff. But that's a classic example of a guy that all he had to do was just tell the truth. And he didn't. And it's the same to be said with these steroids. What did Palmeiro wag his finger? Sosa all of a sudden forgot to speak friggin' English? He didn't know? No say. No habla inglés. I mean, come on, Sammy. What are you talking about?
Right.
All of a sudden, he didn't know how to speak English anymore. Rafael Palmeiro all of a sudden wagging the finger. Alex Rodriguez going on all the different, going on the fan in New York, wearing pink and a nice blue to make it seem like, he's a gentle kind of guy. And I'm looking at him, clean shaven, clean cut, good looking guy. He's got to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Like, no, enough is enough with this nonsense. They're eventually all going to get in, but there is a difference between the guys that are deserving and the ones that have compiled long careers and resumes and hung on because, God forbid, I have to get that 3,000 hit because that gets me in. I remember years ago, the argument was 300 game winner, 500 home run hitter, you're in. You're in. We're never going to see another 300 game winner. And now the ball is flying out of the park all over the friggin' place. There's going to be a bunch of 500 home run hitters. Bunch. The process is skewed. It does not make sense. It doesn't. And Fred McGriff is a guy that I've constantly have battled with people and said, Fred McGriff is a Hall of Famer. Absolutely. This is a great tweet right here. Great. Gene Michael Stick used to play poker at Borgata. He had 12 career home runs and was being needled at the table. He finally had enough and said, how many home runs did you end with? Oh my goodness. Stick Michael. That is great. That's fair, man. That's fair. Stick Michael. That's fair. No, he was a shortstop, man. Close to 1,000 games. Yeah. Yeah. I want to fact check, though, the madman. Stick Michael had 15 career home runs.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Here come the comments.
Well, I got fact checked with the 4th and 26 2 weeks ago. Where were you? I got fact checked with the when you're in a fix, 4th and 26, Freddie Mitchell. Remember that game?
Yeah, I remember it.
I think I said, what did I say it was? Did I say it was was it a division? It was a wild card game?
Crap. I'm trying to remember.
No, it was a division. I called it a wild card game as a divisional playoff round. Okay.
Correct.
I got fact check. So I just, man, got to fact check you.
Okay.
That's it.
Circle is a square. Got it.
See, this is what happens though. They come back with the wise ass comment. I was way off. He was friggin' couple home runs off. That's fine. That's fine.
Well, you knew it was coming.
Of course. I think Pete's going to get in. I do. I definitely think Pete Rose is going to get in.
I felt bad because in that documentary he had made and said if he would have just
apologized,
if he would have just apologized, that he would have been in. But do we still believe to this day? Is it true that if he would have apologized, they would have been like, "All right, Pete, you're in," or everybody still held it against him? Because to me, it would have been like, "Thanks for apologizing, but no, you're still not in."
Yeah, Angel. He finally admitted he bet on baseball in 2004. So once you admit that, then it's, wait a second, did you manipulate the games? Did you bet on the Reds? Did you bet on, it's the same when we know the story, not to rehash, but it's the same thing with friggin' Tim Donaghy. Tim Donaghy, Philly guy, scandal in the NBA. He went on, I remember the 60 Minutes interview. He came on my show the very next day.
Right.
And you want to talk, I would love to get him on. But at the time, it was a great interview. And not because I was conducting the interview, because when I say I did not let him get off the hook with anything, but he was like an open book. I thought, all right, this guy's going to give me something, but he literally turned around and he started to give me stuff. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then I kept going back and forth and, talking about a rogue referee isolated incident. And then we were talking about the discrepancy in that Kings series and the Lakers series. And then I kept growing and growing and growing. And then you say to yourself, okay, what's the benefit, right? What's the benefit? I'm looking at the rat comments.
No. It's just no, Jesus.
What's the benefit of, put money on some of these games? Like, okay, did you see they're killing Marcus Hayes? Did you see that on social media?
Yeah.
So Marcus, I guess, had the article about Isaiah Rodgers, and all he, we know about the gambling stuff. He just pointed out, hey, couple big plays, and we forget that he was entangled in that. But you can't tell Isaiah Rodgers' story without mentioning it. And I bring it up tongue in cheek because of this. Like, when you get pinched for gambling, it's just not going to go away. So you can't tell me that's in my past. It doesn't matter. Dude, you were suspended. What was it, last season? I mean, gambling is prevalent in every sport. I don't care what anyone says. And the NFL got in bed with Vegas and the betting apps. The NHL is doing it with their real-time scores and their real-live betting. The NBA is opening up the book. I mean, you know it is, Donaghy. Baseball, we know it's there too, Pete Rose. You go back to college, Rhode Island, Providence, Arizona State. You go back to the college football. Art Schlichter, the guy was thrown in the clink 1,000 different times. He was trying to put in bets from his jail cell. It's either we're going to accept that from the dawn of time. Perfect example. Last night, I'm doing my notes. I'm watching Gladiator 2, which, by the way, not very good. Couldn't hold a candle to Gladiator. But we're in the year 700, I think it was, right? Or 680 of our Lord, whatever. The Romans, they're in the Colosseum. And you know what Denzel says? Would you like to put away? Back then, it's prevalent. That's what he said. I had to look up what the coin was because I was curious to see its value.
Right.
They're betting on people in the Colosseum, right? They're betting on these guys, the warriors, the slaves, Gladiator, all this. They were doing it in the year of our Lord 700. You don't think Jesus was probably sitting around, hey, Moses, I'll bet you $10 I can get her number? Of course. I guarantee you. I'm telling you.
Only on this show. Did you also have a beeper go along with it? Oh, hold on, G. I gotta take this one.
I'm telling you, she's pretty cute. Maybe I'll see her at the Last Supper.
Oh man. And then you get Madman.
No, all I'm saying is, from the dawn of time, there has been gambling. I wasn't waiting. I don't have material, man. It just came out of nowhere. Just natural. Like, either we accept it or we don't. Can you imagine? She's pretty cute. Let me throw a stone at her.
Oh boy.
That's I mean, we have to just accept it, man. We have to accept it. And the NFL's like, we'll go to Vegas. Smart move.
Okay.
Every show is sponsored by whatever bet. And we're going to suspend these guys for gambling. It's going to be a negative. Like, look, if you're an athlete and you're making millions of dollars, I'm sorry. I'm just looking on Facebook. People are like, you've gone off. What's the motivation? Like, we would know if Isaiah Rodgers put $1 million on the game this weekend. We would see the movement in Vegas. It would be dictated by the line. Period. But, for a couple thousand, 25, is it worth it? What's the incentive here? Like, if you're going to open up fantasy football, that's a form of gambling. It is a form of gambling, period. It just, I don't know.
Oh boy. Here we go. He's got a point.
Marcus in Delaware is listening on the app, and he said, I literally almost ran off the road when you said, hey, Moses, I'll bet you $10. Man, with the joke on a Wednesday. We just need to accept certain things.
That's going to be one of those moments I'm going to be thinking about something later on. Hey, Moses.
I'm serious, man. I got one more guest. Oh, that's it. The Last Supper. All the tables are full.
That might have to go on a shirt on the merchandise that's coming up.
Nick and Wallingford, Q, got tears and a bellyache. Very funny stuff. But I'll say this: if you look at Pete Rose's career, you're right. You can't tell the history of baseball without Pete Rose. He will eventually get in. There's a difference between the compiler, the short span burst, like Mattingly, if he doesn't have the back issues, best player in baseball, stick him in. Compiler, I have to really look, were you a threat? Were you, the best quarterback, top 10, top 5? Were you a feared slugger? Were you a perennial all-star in the NBA or, a 60, 70, 80 goal scorer? Like it's beyond subjective. But now, because we have social media and everyone's pushing, everyone's writing their stories, pushing their narratives, trying to back it up. Like I can spin, you give me any player, I can give you the pros and cons. I can spin it any way you want. I can push my own narrative. I can, by the time we're off the air, make you believe, make you agree with me that X, Y, and Z should be in the Hall of Fame. And you can most likely do the same thing to me. It's how you push and position the numbers. We're talking different eras. We're talking about what stadium they played in, bad weather, good weather, warm weather, short porch, left field, right field, short deck. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. Like, is Brady any less of an all-time great because he played in a horrible AFC East? Of course not. He was just leading the Patriots to Super Bowl year in, year out. It does not matter. But someone in their right mind, some goofball, is not going to vote for Tom Brady because they're going to look at the phone, Deflategate, Spygate, because that's just how they are. You're going to tell me the story of the NFL, you're going to write it without number 12? That's utterly ridiculous. It's ludicrous. They can always find something, like the jackass that decided I'm not going to, whatever he decided, he or she, I'm not going to vote for Ichiro. Yeah, because, he was not a good player. He didn't change. He wasn't the face of baseball for years. Okay, whatever. It's just, I want to be clear with this. The players, we can mention a lot of them. All I'm saying is go back. It's like almost a homework assignment, and you will see borderline guys, and you will question, man, Rich, he might have been right with this, or he might have been wrong. And I think every sport is different, the way they look at it. Randall Cunningham, it's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I would put Randall Cunningham in the Hall of Fame before I would put Donovan McNabb.
I sure would.
And Randall Cunningham had that arc when he was basically back in Nevada, cutting glass, and then he went to Minnesota and he put up monster numbers. But Randall Cunningham would torture Giants. I mean, it's, you're talking about the running quarterback, the dynamic weapon. I remember that SI, that cover of SI, when all of a sudden, Carl Banks tries to go low Monday Night Football. He looked like Plastic Man, gets up, slings right in the back of the end zone to Jimmy Giles. And of course, the Eagles beat the Giants that night. I mean, Randall was special. He was special. And, now we see that in the last 10, 15 plus years, the athletic, the running quarterback, the guy, the game, Daniels, he might be a Cunningham when it's all said and done, Lamar Jackson and these guys. So yeah, you can look at their body of work, but the issue with the NFL a lot of times is you can have a hell of a career, really a hell of a career. But if you don't win, it's frowned upon. And that's not fair. Like Dan Marino is not any less of a quarterback because he never won a Super Bowl. Dan Marino, right? Remember, he could manage his wide receivers. You got to cut in, you got to cut out, the hand gesture, not the Isotona gloves commercial.
Correct.
Right. So hell of a quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback. Right. And, Elway went to those Super Bowls, went to those championships, finally got a ground game, finally got a running game, and a battery main Terrell Davis, won Super Bowl, narrative perception changes. John Elway, here we go, top 5. So it's pick your poison, folks. That's just the way we look at it. All right, we got to start off. I can't even read some of these comments. Seriously. Well, no, the hand with this is Marino, Joey. That's what Dan Marino would do. When Dan Marino would get aggravated because a wide receiver ran the wrong route. Death Star and hand moment. No, just my snowball mic. This baby will be in good use Friday night, remote broadcast unboxing. The other day, I got so excited when I called a knockout. I was doing a remote that I swung it back and but yeah, I'm glad you guys got a good kick out of the most. All right. Good stuff from two Zimas? Nah.
Coming back old school?
I mean, you're talking, walking with the flannel and the Knicks hat. I mean, 6. Already done 2.5. A little smoking and joking outside before I waltzed in.
Just a little bit.
Tell you, I'd never paper bag the Zima though. That's a weak ass look. I'm the Mad Dog, different. The Zima, I'm not brown bagging it, and I don't even want to know. Let's just end it on that. Good stuff from Reese Wood jumping on board. Appreciate him. Don't forget to check out the Reese Wood Foundation. It's a Wednesday. Who's coming up tonight, Angel? Give us a. Do we get a segue into the content that'll be airing later on this evening?
Sure. Talking Hoops will be coming up at the end of the network time. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
We'll be coming up at 8 p.m. from 8 to 9 p.m. That's Coach Johnson, Coach Mack, and Doc Riley. So we'll be talking hoops, NBA, WNBA, and G League Babies Talk. And then right after this show is Bees World from 6 to 7:30. Jesus. From 6 to 7:30 p.m. So right after the Drive with Q is Bees World, as we'll be talking a little Ohio State as the Ohio State, as he absolutely cannot like whatsoever. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the latest breaking stuff that went on. And the other thing that'll be coming up, hopefully maybe if not by the end of this week, the beginning of next week, the merchandise store will be open.
Oh,
a lot of good stuff.
That. Get your credit card ready to swipe that bad boy. Cart. Oh, sorry, Joey. Cart. A little merch. Maybe I should come up with that, the Jesus and Moses bet.
That's why I said I got to put it on a t-shirt. Hey, listen, you never know. Some of the comments might end up making a t-shirt. You never know. Ex-Madman, Trevor,
We have to speak to our legal counsel first.
Yes.
Make sure we don't get screwed on a couple of things. So, all right, brother. Good to see you. We'll be back in the saddle as always. Tomorrow on a Thursday, a lot of NFL talk, a little more of the baseball from 4 to 6 for mi hermano Angel Martinez, keeping us on the air as always. Keep it locked in the rest of the night. As Angel mentioned, great content coming. Don't forget to download the SR 1029 FM app. Jabe's coming up next. Keep it locked in. We will talk to you tomorrow. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Enjoy your Sports Wednesday. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.